It's now 5 o'clock on June 3rd, 2025. Roll call, please. Kate?
Peterson,
Here.
Gooding,
Present.
Patovich,
Present.
Hamilton,
Present.
Wesley.
Here. Okay. Moving on to item number 2, public comment. So this is the opportunity for anyone to speak on any discussion item listed on tonight's agenda. On anything that is not, or anything that's not on the agenda. This will be the only time that you'll be able to speak. If you'd like to speak, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and each individual will have a total of 3 minutes comment on a particular discussion item or subject. Anyone? Okay. Moving on to number 3, approval of the agenda for tonight. Everybody had a chance to take a look?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Patovich,
Second.
second by Peterson. In favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. Okay, approval of the utility board meeting minutes from May 20th, 2025. Any corrections needed? Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second. Motion by Patovich, second by Hamilton. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. Okay, financial and administrative consideration to approve bills payable. I did have one question on that. There was an item about some generator work for the water department. There was a bill put forth on that, and it wasn't from Caterpillar.
Martin Equipment.
Martin Equipment, yeah.
Yes,
Or,
because it's a John Deere motor, we had Martin look at it because they're actual techs for those motors. And it did actually help out more than Altworth.
okay,
We do have updated labs now that I can send to you guys that you can look at, but I'll get more into it with the department's update.
okay, and this is regarding the cooling system on the generator at the main plant, treatment plant, okay. Okay, that was the only thing that stood out to me. Anybody else? Motion to approve? Motion to approve. Motion by Gooding,
Second.
second by Patovich. Favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. Okay, financial and administrative department updates, 5B. Vanna or Katie or Sadie?
Yeah, so, I just had that I completed some more of my department shadow days. So I did follow Ray, our building inspector, on the 13th. I had to be a lineman for a day on the 22nd. And then today I actually just got to go with Keegan and his operators, half the day and shadowed them. And then we also did just update our electric rates to the summer rates. So those go into effect July 1st, and then they go through November 1st. We're gonna switch back to the winter rates.
Okay. Did go up in the bucket truck?
I think.
Nice. She had all of her PPE on, she was secured that, excellent, good, good.
Full soul she
Okay, any other department updates for the financial administrative? Thank you, Sadie. Moving on to number 6A, discussion and consideration to approve Grunwald Land Development Water Main request. So I know Jeff Martins has provided us a lot of information, a lot of emails and correspondence, and has done a lot of research on this to, I guess, sort out something that's from 4 or 5 years ago. So
Would you like me to give you a summary?
please, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So Dale has approached me on a couple of occasions about this agreement. The first being approximately a year ago was when I first had a note on it. In July of 24, and then more recently, over the last couple of months. So on both those occasions, I'd asked Dale if he had any documentation, resolutions, emails, agreements, anything from the city, in paper or electronic format. Unfortunately, he did not. So I did my best, to try to compile what information I could find from that time period again, 4 years ago with different staff and different board in place. So basically what I found was just the couple of emails that were, in your packet, that were chains. One of them, I'd like to clarify a comment that I made, because I did get a couple of questions about that. I refer to plat notes that were provided at the time the designer was told the city would pay the difference. By plat notes, I don't mean notes that were actually on the plat. That is what James Martin, the former assistant city administrator, referred to that PDF as. And those were simply staff comments that were sent to the engineer on the project, the designer, architect, at the time. So they weren't notes actually on the plat, they were staff comments. So now we call those staff comments, I've enabled that staff comments. But I called it plat notes because that's what it was. It was notes that the staff had compiled about the pre-plat.
Within the city?
Yes.
So they were all city employees?
They're all city employees and, yeah, so our review process is that someone will submit a preliminary or a final plat. We'll conduct a staff review of that. Then the staff will send out notes back to the, whoever submitted that, the engineer, and give them a chance to make corrections on that before that, goes to the planning commission. So that was part of those notes. In that, there was a comment made, about the city paying the difference between a 12-inch main and an 8-inch main. But then several months later, I think 8 months later, there was an email sent, in response to a question that Joe Grunwald had asked James Martin about who was going to pay for the water main. It seemed to contradict the previous information. That said that the city would only pay the difference if there was an agreement previously in place, alluding to no agreement being in place, was the way that I read that.
And that was the response from James Martin on April 22nd, 2021?
Yes.
Okay, I did see that. I had notes and comments on that.
Yeah, so then I spent some time, I looked through the utility minutes. This board, on a staff level, we're not allowed to approve an agreement such as this, I mean, we're talking about a $50,000, difference here. On a staff level, we're not allowed to approve that. I would never in my position now attempt to approve something like that. I don't, like I said, they were all different people back then. I don't know what happened or what was said other than the information I provided you. So by reading the packet, you now have all the information, that I had. But I did go through the utility board minutes from July of 2019 through July of 2021, which would be before the start of this project, before the preliminary plat was submitted, all the way up until the end of construction of this main, which was in July of 21. July 9th, 2021 was when the maintenance bond was issued and that project was finished. It wasn't accepted until a little bit later by the city, but that's when it was finished. I found no mention of this agreement, and I went through all the resolutions actually from 2019 through now, through 2025, and there were no resolutions that mentioned any type of agreement. So that's where I'm at on a research point. Mr. Grunwald asked, for all this information to be submitted to you. So that's where we are at this time.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. I also saw in the enclosure a response from Jill. I don't see Jill here, but you were copied, I think, Dale, you were
Yes.
copied on it back in April 28th, 2021, that said, thank you for the information. And that was a response to James Martin from his response in red from April 22nd, 2021. And I think you had included that with the information submitted.
I do, yeah, and that would you like me to read that?
Sure.
So Jill had asked, who pays for the water extension along Lincoln Road? And James's response to that was, based on the approved plans and barring any agreement between the developer and city that I wasn't involved in, the developer pays for all of that main. I think I've heard in years past, there were agreements between the city and developer where the developer pays for the equivalent of an 8-inch main, so the city pays for an upcharge to 12-inch, but that would require an agreement with the city to be in place, was the response.
Okay, and then the acknowledgement from Jill on the 28th, thanking for the information. Is there any other correspondence from the Grunwalds after that?
Not that I could find. I searched, the word water, adding main. I searched a number of different combinations of different words, trying to come up with additional emails, and what you have in your packet was the only thing I was able to find after probably over an hour of searching in different combinations of words and changes.
I'll just ask Dale, do you have any additional information that's, that maybe we haven't been presented?
Yes, the only thing that I was aware of is that the city was gonna provide water to my first mission, which is Fifth Street. We're almost done with Fifth. We had no water along Lincoln. So come to you, say, what is going on? I can't remember his name. Joel, Jacob, the gentleman that got fired who was in charge of it,
Was the electric department?
the water department.
So Jacob was with the electric.
But
Okay,
actually, at the time, if I can clarify that, if you look at the emails that were taking place then, Mark Schmidt, I believe, was the water superintendent at that time.
okay,
He is copied on his emails, so he would have, still be employed by the city. At least as of the first email on 9/9/2020.
okay. And sorry to interrupt you, I just wanted to clarify who maybe this individual was.
At that time, he said, just put it in, get it done, get water out there, and we'll worry about this later, but the city will pay for it. To me, it's $133,000. The difference of the 8-inch to 12-inch is about 40,
43,000, I think, something from your engineer.
whatever it is.
Yep.
And you have 3 options: pay it all, pay for the difference, or pay none. I really don't care.
Sure,
I
sure.
mean, it's only money.
No, I'm just looking for any other information that maybe hasn't been presented to this board. I'm sure there's gonna be other questions, perhaps from other members here, but, we just kind of trying to
Appreciate that.
make sure you have all the information to everybody here to make that decision, so. Anybody else?
I guess my main concern goes back to, and I'm sure everybody else is too, that there is nothing in writing for a resolution on
Right.
any end of this, and as we expressed earlier too, like running a business or doing that, like we want to make sure to have that in place, so that's kind of where we're at, as we keep researching, or I'm, whoever researching this and looking into this.
Yeah, I was never told anything about a resolution for this water. The only thing I was told, get it done. Miller was doing my addition, Miller was gonna do this. I never ever seen an engineering drawing for it. He started putting it in, Miller had another second crew come in to put that in, they put it in like a week. I mean, it didn't take them long. So,
So was there any follow-up by you or Jill, I guess, between April 28th and today on this? I mean, $43,000 seems like, if it was my money, I'd be running after it.
I am not that way.
Yeah, I get it. I believe, yes, I understand. I
Yeah.
just,
Well, I think it's also important to note that when I know of Dale, he's a gentleman's agreement handshake type guy. And while it would obviously have been smarter to have a document saying you're gonna get reimbursed, that's just not how you operate.
Sure.
I don't, and if honesty isn't the way it goes, we'll make it up someplace else.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I have a lot of land in this area. And if I raise the price $3,000, make up for what you didn't pay me here.
Sure, understood.
Is there a reason why it was requested to go from 8 to 12
You wanted to put a loop around,
to make it into a full grid?
and that's
Possibly.
beyond me too.
Okay,
I mean, he just said, Long Lincoln, he wants a 12-inch.
Feed other
yeah,
Yeah, understand,
Because
a
if
little
it
bit
goes-
redundancy,
yeah,
you
because
know.
it's gonna lock out and then you're not gonna have pressure if it doesn't hook to another, like if it was, be extended all the way.
He mentioned to me, what if so-and-so breaks? And I can feed water this way
Mhm.
and still keep them customers happy. I only
Yeah.
have a few customers
I
now.
think it's because there's already 12-inch on East Lincoln. So I think it was like a matter of that, just continue the 12-inch from East Lincoln down West.
Is that what it was?
I don't think it was like a situation of being able to backfeed with 12-inch. Because 8-inch can move a lot of water.
Yeah,
So if we had put 8-inch in, it would have made a difference. But I think because there's already 12-inch on East Lincoln, they just continued with the 12-inch.
and if it's the 350 PSI, then it's should have enough pressure. I mean, that's minimum pressure on the ductile iron, so it would have enough on an 8-inch,
8-inch.
truly. Yeah. From a legal standpoint, I mean, it does kind of stink that, you know, there was a discussion probably that did happen based on, you know, these things. However, going 4 years in now, I don't know how we can pay for this without having it be as a resolution, and then also affecting other developments in the future for other people, you know,
Might set a precedence.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I mean, we're kind of handshake people too, you know, like I get it, like it sucks, but I just don't know if I,
It'd been nice
Legally
if
do it.
the people on this board,
somebody was there, part of it, and.
Yeah.
and we would have said, yeah, we agreed on it with you. And the handshake would have been good enough, but we weren't here, and that's the issue, it's like, you know,
If in the past you've paid the difference between 8 and 12, that's the precedence.
Is there any way to look that up?
I don't know from my end, I don't know what kind of records. I
If
can
you,
talk to
do
the.
you have information on that we could review?
But if that would have been done in the past, you would have thought there would have been resolutions then, because even clearly 4 years ago, they talk about resolutions. The only mention of it is they have heard in the past, there may have been an agreement possibly, but that's speculating,
And it
Yeah.
wouldn't necessarily been a resolution, sure.
right?
I mean,
Yeah.
ideally, but that doesn't mean that that's what happened.
Yeah, I mean, I looked through 2 years board minutes and didn't find any mention of anything about it, so I don't think the board at the time was aware, or it didn't come up at a board meeting anyway, otherwise it would have been. But, so I don't know, I mean, I'm just as much of a loss as everything else.
so Kagan, would there be any way of looking back to see, as far as you know, when they going from 8 to 12, when it was kind of requested on different projects or anything?
Because that would have been the first development that happened when I started here. And I mean, since then, we've had no project where we needed to upscale. And I think at the time, we didn't really have specs, so we kind of just went off with, like, I think Greg Sheffield was our engineer at the time. So Mark probably just listened to Greg more so. So Greg might be somebody that we could resource to see if that had happened before, where we upsized and then we made the difference.
Or maybe that there was a reason for upsizing,
Another question we could ask too.
you know, I mean, just questioning, is there something we're all still missing here and we want to upsize? or-
I can't think of a reason why they would have wanted to upsize there, other than the fact that they're already 12 inch on Lincoln. Cause it feeds off of 16, there's 16 inch going down South First, and then it turns into 12 inch down Lincoln. But in my mind, 8 inch would have been perfectly suitable.
That's fine.
So, cause the 16 feeds all the cement plants down south, so 12 going west down Lincoln wouldn't have done anything for them.
No, but for the cement plant, like,
Oh, the old one right there. Oh, that was already gone.
So why
You got
keep
some
it
there,
12
too.
west? If you don't think
Got
they
some
need
there, but that's there too.
I did not know why they would have put 12 west. I think that until they connect Scott Park Road and Lincoln all the way to Scott Park Road, and then they start looping everything out from Lincoln to LeClaire, or Scott Park Road to LeClaire, and Scott Park Road to Blacktop Trail. Maybe that was the thought, was that 12 inch would end up being the main feeder for those rigs.
I was just,
And it could be the same thing with Buttermilk. They want 12 inch to go up to Buttermilk so they could feed south down Buttermilk. But I guess I don't know how far they planned.
Cause if it dead ends right there, for the time being, it doesn't have anything drawing. And so if you do have any kind of break, it can, you don't have enough, possibly enough pressure to supply everybody else if it's not grid.
Well, and I think, you know, going back to civil engineering days, like when we would do new divisions and subclass like that, do that. You tied them, you just didn't go from like 1 to 5, like you did those studies to make sure whatever area it is, say it's Lincoln Road. Like what is forecasted or what's the glide path ahead for that. Not necessarily saying the pipe, but like that's the kind of things you looked at, like traffic studies, like water mains and that type of stuff.
I'm assuming that the full intention was that all of the stuff south of Lincoln was gonna get developed. And then Buttermilk would connect to Lincoln, and Buttermilk would go all the way down to Sloper Town, and it would almost end up being a continuous loop.
And you think maybe this Greg person may recall some of that?
And he's gone, he's at the county now, Shive might, I mean, I could call him, I mean, we talked about other issues. I could also see if Shive has, I mean, they would have access to all of his previous emails, and they should have any documents that are on file for this, Shive would have, if you want me to just see if Shive has anything that we don't have.
I think it'd be a good idea just to, I mean, see
I
what
mean,
we
even
can
if the
find out.
consideration doesn't pass tonight, doesn't mean it can't come up on the agenda in the future.
We can table it too, can't we? I mean.
Well, I mean, yeah, we can table it if there's any additional information, unless, there's enough to feel strongly to approve. I may recommend we table it if we find additional information, and let's get it in front of the board and go from there.
And if you or Joe come up with any other information, pass that on to us too.
most of my business is done verbally. I mean, I put in X-ray all over, it's usually a phone call or the day I get there with the equipment and the invoice. What do you look like?
And unfortunately, we've had such a turnover from that period of time that, it's, now we're searching, so.
And whatever decisions you make, I'll be satisfied.
Okay, so maybe we table it for now, and then, pending any additional information, that can come back on another agenda. Okay? Thank you, Dale.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Dale.
So, okay, moving on to 6B, consideration of water distribution ordinance. That was attached to the package. I think I have concern, we probably want to look at a little bit further.
That's section 4.
Section 4, use of public water system requirements. It looks like this would potentially impact those that might be on, that are zoned SA, suburban agricultural. And if they were continuing to use a well, that this ordinance would impact that, potentially impact that. individual, so. Cause this basically just makes it all inclusive to all property owners. Within 200 feet of, water main. That's the only thing that I saw that they, had some concerns with, and how they would be impacted, and if we wanted to maybe discuss, a grandfather clause,
Yeah.
no new wells. That might be an option, but,
So the wells are also referenced later on.
Private wells.
Yeah, where they would just basically have to get a permit from the Scott County Health Department.
and for existing wells, or just?
For new wells.
New wells, so, but if you had an existing well, according to this, the way I read it, the city could notice that individual with a well and, require him to, make a connection if the city extended lines within 200 foot of their property line.
So that is, I have somebody that lives in like one of the old Lincoln Road additions, and they have a well for everybody out there. I think it's not yours, it's next.
How many?
Like Ben Horsley back there, yeah. And I know she had told me, I think that was a year or two ago, that the city had approached them and tried to get them to go on city water. And they all agreed to keep their well.
Sure,
They
and that's
would
what I'm saying.
maintain it and like things
Those
like that.
people like that could be impacted, and those zoned SA that may, been swallowed up with the growth of the community is, could be impacted by this language here.
And that's where it kind of leaves it discretionary, where it's, if it's reasonably available. So the one I'm picturing in my head right now is South 11th Ave, just past Lincoln. That's having 3 acres. Yeah, so Country Acres, every single one of those places on wells. And unless the main got extended down there, I think, because I don't think the city would take it upon ourselves to do that. I think the homes would probably have to come together to extend that main down there.
So I believe there is properties within the community that the water main does, extend past and through in front of, properties that are zoned SA.
Yeah, there's some
And they have
on South 9th Avenue Court too.
Where's it go across? Like, is it, I don't know if ours is extended any further past Johnson's.
Yeah, those 2 little gray houses right there, it stops right there.
South Line is city water.
It's, but there's 2 homes on South 9th that are still well.
Oh, in the corner there.
The one is actually connecting to us, but the other one's gonna stay well. So they're very, we can reword this to grandfather in ones that do not want to connect.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because as the community
have
grows, there's gonna be
existing,
other homes. I mean, this Dale puts in 4 subdivisions to the south,
Yeah,
there's still gonna be homes that could be, if they want to stay on a well, they choose to, so.
I think the verbiage definitely just based on like discussions I had with a couple of the people that lived in Country Acres. And they were very strong about it, and whatever they do on their own, they all input money every year, whether or not they use it or not, but they have surplus of funds if anything goes wrong with that well.
Sure.
And to replace it and stuff, but they all felt strong
Yeah.
about it,
Yeah.
and
because
they,
we replaced our well pump just a couple of years ago, and we went down just a skosh deeper, and
Sure,
I mean, I have no plans to attach to city water, to be honest with you. So,
and then I think if we just amend it to, grandfather in, and then,
Yeah.
like Keegan said, if somebody does feel strongly about wanting to put in a new well, then they would have to go through the county and get it permitted that way.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Number one, if you're within the city's water, I don't think the county will let you put a well in. Period.
Okay, that could be the case.
Number two, if you have a subdivision all on wells, and now somebody wants to develop the ground beyond it, who pays for the water main across? But you're not gonna get any revenue from it. Most towns put a limit. 100 feet, 200 feet, 500 feet, if you're within that of water main, you have to hook on. Sorry. That's the way Lane is.
That in resolution right now? Or is that new with ordinance?
Currently, kind of, yes, because that's what we were dealing with on North 16th.
Does it say in the resolution for 200 feet?
It doesn't have a per foot requirement, it just says that you're required to hook up to city water and sewer. The sewer,
Reason.
Yeah, it's reasonable.
So North 16th though was approved by council because it was deemed that they were just gonna use the non-drinking water. They still had water hookups to their building. They were going to do the well. The well was approved because it was gonna be non-potable.
Yeah.
Only for their mulch making or mixing, yes. That was the reason that went through.
there is a per foot requirement currently in city code for sewer hookups that you have to be. And I don't, that's the one there, off the top of my head, it's not 200 feet, it's some.
Yeah.
Want to say I remember that today. It's 200.
Was it 200? Was it 200? And it makes sense to make them consistent.
We're on-
if you're gonna-
We're on the sewer, but.
So is that something then, like, as Keegan's got some information on this, like Dale just said, just say Country Acres. He decides to build behind there and has to shoot something through there. I mean, that could be a good probability. Farmland back there at some point, like, that we need to address if we decided to grandfather this or make a decision like,
Or if we
depending on
choose
what the bill
grandfather.
says. Yeah,
It'd be like the same thing on South Ninth Avenue already, that they did run main all the way through to develop it, and then two of the homes decided to stay on their wells. So it could be the same thing for Country Acres, even if they did run main down there, the homes could opt to just stay on the wells.
I just want to make sure we understand who would be impacted, or we maybe
That
include a
extension at
solution
that
that
point.
would grandfather somebody in.
Yeah, that would be,
It'd have to be the development that wanted the water out there.
so then what happens, and I'm just trying to educate myself here, say the two that are on, what'd you say, Ninth Street, that have to stay in wells. 2 years from now, person A is like, I don't wanna be on the well, I wanna tie back in, they're paying that expense to do that, or?
Yes.
Okay.
We're actually going through that right now.
yeah,
So, because one of them is gonna connect to the city. So that'd be,
which if it's already ran, it's not gonna do that,
Yeah,
you
it's
just gotta get from your property.
Just tap and
Yeah,
run the
tap
line.
to the house.
which we have in here too, it talks about
Sure.
the service is fully furnished by the homeowner or the property owner.
Yeah, as it should be for that.
Any other questions on this? Like I said, I think I'd like to table this as well and see if we can look at, that section a little closer, who might be impacted and what we can do to address it.
Is there Iowa code, like overall Iowa code for that then?
So you've adopted, the state has adopted,
Or the universal
universal
plumbing code, but
So that would be the only precedent, right?
I don't know if that addresses anything with specifically like a defroster that you have to attach to city water.
There are other codes referenced in this ordinance, so I can go back through those and see if they reference anything as far as public water systems.
Everybody good with that, if we table that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Put on 6C, water main breaks.
No.
No.
We're all good. I have another meeting to go to.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Hey, moving on, 6D, water test results, so that was included in our packet, everything come back negative that I saw, so.
Yep, May back to pass. So in May, we had submitted a hardness sample. This was something that ISP requested of us. And it was in the same sample models that fluoride goes in. So we did not submit a monthly fluoride sample. I talked to Health and Human Services and the DNR to make sure that wasn't a violation of our permit. Our DNR permit does not require us to submit monthly fluoride samples. So we go to the DNR, and Health and Human Services can use our MOR, our monthly operating report, to get the residuals. So we're good for, I hate that we missed submitting a lab sample, but we're fine if we missed one. So
That's just a one-off then.
it was a one-off. And then today we took our UCMR5 samples, and those are being sent off to the EPA. It's the unregulated contaminant monitoring. So when we get the results back for that, we'll have those in the next agenda.
And did you say last meeting, we talked about you'd ordered some more fluoride?
I have not ordered more, but I want to talk to you in the department update to see how much we want to get ordered with.
I forgot my notebook with my notes.
Okay, moving on to six E, discussion and consideration to approve quote from John Deere Motor Services for the maintenance on high service motor number one. So it looks like it was more of a mechanical issue on that shaft. When I saw, anybody have any questions on that? Motion to approve? Motion. Second by Hamilton, second by Gooding. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. Okay, six F, discussion and consideration to approve a quote from Climate Engineers for the work on the HVAC water treatment plant. So it looks like we got a revised quote on that. Still didn't get quite all the details I was hoping to see on that motor contactor. But they did, it looks like they adjust the price down $1,200 because the original quote, looks like they had, Honeywell spec. And then, they proposed, another aftermarket, substitution that was less money.
That like Bolero or something.
Yeah.
I forget what the name was, yeah. So,
So the original ones were square Ds in there when I looked at it. So the Honeywells were gonna be aftermarket, this other one's aftermarket. I guess the only question I had is that they had labor on there for $857, I believe.
so I think the labor's on there because it's outside the scope of the maintenance agreement.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask is why that labor would be on there for that.
Yeah.
So. I mean. $2,500 seems, or $2,300 seems more in line than, you know, that, and I want to see it get fixed. So,
That's a.
We need it.
So, motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Peterson, second by Hamilton. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. Yeah, the only thing I'd ask is when they put things like, replace the contactor or the motor starters, pictures would go a long ways on that. I know it was running that day and it was raining and we didn't want to go into it all soaking wet, so we elected not to open that cabinet, but, it's, you know, I think that would help them some of the decisions going forward.
Yeah, that's, drops you there. Moving forward.
Awesome. Six G, department updates. Keegan, anything else for us?
Yeah, so the fluoride, we've actually had 3 million gallon days already this year. So the high water usage just made us go through the fluoride a little bit faster, our caustic's going by a little bit faster, and chlorine. So we're down to about 3 weeks of fluoride, and it takes about 2 days to get an order. So that's where I need to have this discussion with you guys to see how much we wanted to order.
What was our normal ordering batch? Was it 6 months? Years?
So I was ordering it by 50 gallons, because 50 gallons should last us just shy of 5 months.
Okay. So you were just getting one barrel at a time?
Yeah. So, yeah, so we have basically about 3 weeks left. And then we'll be out of it.
So if we did approve, I guess, one barrel, that would get us through the next 5 months. That's the minimum you can buy, correct?
Or is there a discount if we order two?
It's
Same.
like, it's per the gallon.
You know, we might want to have that discussion, because there's some states already getting rid of fluoride altogether. Utah is one of them, Florida is one of them.
I think in the meantime, we're gonna have to.
Yeah.
We have the time,
Right, and I mean,
yeah,
I mean, that's gonna last us
but
5.
I think
one barrel,
one barrel and then let's discuss.
see what happens.
If it was a decision that the board wanted to make to stop on our own, we need to give a 90-day notification.
Right,
Right.
I agree.
3 months at least.
Plus, we would need to pass that too, and
Right.
so again, right now, we're following the CDC guidance.
Yep.
And,
We'll go with one barrel.
Island, so.
Because you said it only takes 2 days. You're not getting a big discount if you get 2 barrels, so. You get 1 barrel at a time and it's 5 more months down the road.
Okay. Anything else?
No,
Nope.
I think we're quiet right now.
How are your apprentices doing?
So Taylor's doing awesome. He, yeah, he's already got his, obviously his grade 2 certification. He's already testing for his second one. He's really picked everything up really fast and he just does anything I ask him to do, so. That's good.
He's a smiling one.
I think he likes to have fun.
Did you say you were gonna talk about that Martin equipment?
Yeah, sorry. So because of it being a John Deere motor, the All-Torque Protect referenced us to, referred us to Martin just to come take a look at it. So then they came out and they did a drain and flush. They looked at the coolant that was being put in there, and the coolant was for a natural gas motor, not a diesel motor. So they're thinking that the coolant was the issue. So he did a drain and flush and then got a lab sample sent off, and then he came back a week later after we ran it for, I think, like 10 hours just to get everything cycled through, and it had cleared up. So then his worry, I asked him if we want to do a second drain and flush, but he said we didn't want to knock too much stuff loose because then we might start causing pitting or have holes get exposed. So right now, we're just running it to cycle all the stuff through it. So he wants us to put 50 hours on in the next 3 months. So we ran for 2 hours today, and then probably later this week, we'll run for another 2 hours, just until probably September. And then they'll come back and they'll do another lab. But from the first drain and flush and the first lab, he said that everything, not everything, but it was starting to clear up again. And then he put the proper coolant in the motor, it should be there.
I guess that concerns me a little bit that they're putting the wrong coolant in. What
Yeah,
about
who's
the
in
other,
charge of it?
what about the other generators?
Yeah.
Because the other ones are natural gas.
So they are?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they found, they just lump that one in even though it's diesel.
Yeah.
So
Is there anything like you can post on
Who's in
that?
charge of actually
All
putting,
workers are tech.
I mean, is there something you can post on any of the equipment or like? Put a reminder into all worker when they come out, like this is what happened.
Yeah. They all told me to pay for Martin's bill to get the right fluid.
I was gonna say, because with the Alter
I mean,
charges for additional testing and
yeah,
they come back with the bad lab results, but it wasn't correct.
yeah, I mean, if we
Put it together.
entrust them to do their job and they're not doing their job right,
Well, we were gonna put what, a $15,000 radiator?
that's what they suggested,
Yeah, over
which would have been great for them.
incorrect fluid being used, so.
That's please. I can definitely pass it by him.
Yeah, let's see what happens.
Dale, I think you had your hand up.
I was questioning when the board was gonna approve plastic pipe for water mains. And said that.
That's good in the past, that was, in the past, wasn't it?
It has not been passed. We have not brought it.
We've only ever had discussions,
Is that
Yeah.
2 weeks ago?
but I think it's,
For you.
I mean, you guys would approve it, but then it'd be an ordinance that got passed by City Hall.
Okay, we passed it here, correct? I remember. we had that question on
We
that.
just had a like brief discussion on it.
There was a discussion, that's when the tours,
Yeah.
discussion on the tours got set, but you know, like we talked about before, everybody else was doing it.
Yeah.
There.
Okay,
So yeah,
so that might be another agenda item coming up then.
If it has to be passed here and then it has to go to council,
Yeah,
and you have to have 3 readings there.
they should have 3 readings, but they can waive the readings if after the first reading, they can do the second and third at the second meeting. If we don't have questions, comments, things like that that come in after that first reading, then they could waive that third reading and pass it on the second meeting. So
You're still looking at,
it could be done by the end of July. If we passed it here at the next meeting and then skipped the third reading, we could pass it in July if it kept getting approved.
Do you have some projects coming up that timeline would be helpful for you?
I'll just wait.
I think it's something that should be a priority. We've been talking about it for a while.
Sure, yeah, I remember coming up and I think, you know, we, good conversation, but, yeah, if we get on the next agenda.
What's that?
300.
Yes, I do.
They do for sewer.
They do for sewer, not for water mains.
Davenport, but.
Davenport, but don't allow it.
But. I think Long Grove, Donahue, a lot of smaller surrounding cities, like Tipton,
Bluegrass,
Tipton, Wilton, Wolcott, those, they all use plastic. And they're all going completely over to plastic. So we have some communities that do not, and then some communities that are going 100%.
Okay. We get that on the agenda.
Thank you.
No problem.
Is that something just to see, just again for educational purposes, like the pros and cons, like you probably know? Or Ryan, you seem to know about this,
I'll find out an answer. I'll send it out.
just to see, I think it'd be useful and.
And I've been talking with ISG about this, and we do have a pros and cons list, and I've talked to DIPRA, and I've talked to other advocates for PVC. Like I had a webinar 2 weeks ago about PVC and the benefits of it.
And just like even the justification of why it would be impactful for the community, or if we didn't do it, negative or positive, what impacts it would have to the community if we didn't do that.
I think we already had, the first discussion, we had like a recommendation from ISG for the use of plastic, plus
That's what I remember.
some other communities. And I know we talked about touring Jam Eagle, and
Yeah.
Jam Eagle, I'm still working with them to get another date figured out for a plant tour. So we definitely had in-depth conversation.
All right, thank you, Keegan. Moving on to item number 8, electric department, 8A outages. Colin, anything?
No outages. We had a blank last Wednesday and once on Sunday, we seen on the rate closures. I came in both times, but didn't find anything out of the ordinary. Could have been animal related, but didn't cause, I didn't get any outage notifications because of those, so.
Okay.
Nothing to report.
All right. And the next one, 8B, discussion on upcoming PCA rate increase. So I know we got those, auction results from MISO that we looked at last meeting, and, you know, they were definitely concerning with, the amount that, could potentially go up this summer for rates. And, but I think, you know, we had some additional information that Sadie had sent out, that, and as well as Nevada on how that could be impacting our community. And so, you know, I looked at it a little bit closer, and I still would like to have a conversation with Compass that's, you know, that holds our PPA, that, you know, with the off taker. But from what I can see is, you know, if we had a normal summer, everything remains the same as in the past, there should be little impact. But if we have an unseasonable hot streak where we go and our consumption exceeds our demand, our what they call a plant requirement, the allotment that we have assigned to us, then the demand rates could kick in and we could see, you know, some heavy charges being applied to the extra demand. So, you know, I think we still need to get some more information on this, just, you know, to ensure that, hey, we don't have the luxury of surpluses that we've had in the past. And, in the past, if we went over our margin that was assigned to us, there was very little impact. Well, that's all changed now. So now we're on that curve, and that's new this year. So if we go over, there will be financial consequences. And the more we go over, the higher it goes. So, and that's why you'll see a lot of places like California and Texas, that they don't want to go over, so they'll do, you know, rolling blackouts or brownouts to keep them having to strain the, more budgetary for them. The power's available, because they just don't want to take the increased demand rates, so.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but is it a quarter behind the power cost adjustment? Is it
Yep, so we would update the summer rates on the fall PCA. So they would see the reflection on the PCA in October.
so starting now, right, June forward?
Correct.
See the increase until October, but it's still a 23% increase right now.
Yes, there's more than likely gonna be, some sort of rate increase, that's gonna be impacting us, but, just because the basic megawatt hours went up, but the demand is what went up and, you know, exponentially, so.
Yeah, I mean, all things staying the same. I mean, if you're using the same amount, you're still gonna see a 23% increase in October.
More than likely, yes,
If-
yeah.
And I know we wanna, get more information from Compass, but like, there's sometimes educational pamphlets, things like that, like. That we could maybe post on our Facebook page or something that just say like, hey, the summer months are coming, how to use less electricity, stuff like that.
The way that MISO, you know, has changed the demand curve, it might behoove us to, you know, make sure the public's aware that, you know, conserve as much as possible, because things aren't gonna be the same as they've been in the past. And, you know, just looking at, the PPA agreements that we had with the other two generation sites, that does help us. I know we had a speaker last time. It didn't seem like he was completely informed of our situation, so, anyhow, it's something that we can still try to figure out if, you know, if this is, you know, the projected bill is still accurate there, but yes, it will go up. It's been going up everywhere, so. Any other discussion on this topic?
Nothing here.
Okay. So moving on to AC, department updates. Colin, anything?
No major updates, still between some projects, helping out some things with Long Grove. We're in the middle of a pole change out right now on West Leclerc Road, North Seventh Street. Guys did relocate the service at 7-Eleven West Spring Street today for like garage addition, so we had to abandon our old service line to their house and put in a new one, so. They don't, it. About it.
Okay, thank you, Colin. Thanks, Colin. All right, that leads us to number 9, motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by Peterson,
Second.
second by Patovich. Favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Please, ayes have it.
We got some special agenda.